everybody, and welcome to another board game review and gameplay demo. Today I'm going to be talking all about Azul, which is a tile drafting construction type game. Before I really get started though, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at all my various social media pages as well as my Patreon. On all those you'll be able to talk with me and interact with my channel in all sorts of really fun and interesting ways. That said, moving right along to talk about Azul. This is a very vibrantly colored, extremely aesthetic game where, like I said, you're doing essentially tile drafting and trying to build a specific pattern on your individual player board. It plays from 2 to 4 people and it's really quick. It only takes about half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour or so, including teaching other people how to play. The mechanics are very, very simple, but when you really start to get into it, the strategy is quite in-depth and you see a lot of long-term decision making as well as a little bit of sort of take that Euro style mechanics playing between the players themselves. That said, we're going to get started right now with what this game is similar to. As far as similarities are concerned, there are 2 major ones that I wanted to talk about. The first one being Sagrada. This is a relatively new release, just like Azul is, where you're trying to build up a stained glass window based off of specific dice rolls. Not only do you have a relatively similar sort of drafting style mechanic, but you also have a similar focus on the aesthetics of the game, where you see really bright, vibrant colors, and you see just your player board sort of come to life as you play through the game. The second thing that I really wanted to mention it's more of a category of things like Sushi Go and stuff along those lines, where you just have this sort of general drafting and selection mechanic. That's effectively what you're doing with Azul. While in Azul you're not passing around tiles or something like that, instead you're selecting them from the center of the table, you do still have the ability to sort of force your opponents to be stuck with something that they don't necessarily want or really can't utilize later on in the game. But with that, we're going to get right into how to play Azul. Alright everybody, we're all set up and ready to start playing Azul. In this game, very simply, we are trying to get the most number of points by completing, to the best of our ability, our tile square that we each have on our individual player boards. In order to do this, we're going to be playing over the course of several rounds, where we will be drafting tiles from the center of the table, putting them on our player boards, and then at the end of the round, if we have some completed, they'll be moving over and taking their specific spots. Once the round is complete, then we will be scoring everything. Not only do we score new tiles that we placed, but we also get bonuses for adjacency, and if we have completed a set number of a specific color, we also get bonuses if we complete vertical columns and horizontal rows. That said, the end of the game is triggered as soon as somebody completes any single horizontal row. The flow of the game is very simple. On your turn, all you're going to do is you're going to take all of the same color of tiles from one of the selected spots or from the middle of the table. Effectively, what's going to happen is you'll take, for example, these 2 yellow tiles, push the other 2 into the middle, and then take these and place them on your board like so. Essentially, if you look at these, you'll see the top row only requires a single tile, the next row requires 2, then 3, 4, and 5. You'll be filling these from right to left, and once they're full, at the end of the round, that particular tile color will move over and take its spot on the pattern here, and then you'll be able to score it. That said, this is a lot of where the strategy comes into place. For example, if you only need blue tiles and there's only 5 available, then hopefully you need it on the bottom row. What ends up happening is if you have to take tiles that you don't need, they'll go here on the bottom of your card, and that means that you'll be losing points at the end of the round. That said, this will happen until somebody can't or doesn't want to take from any of these external factories. At the end of the round, all of these tiles will be gone and on individual player boards in some way. Effectively, at some point, we'll end up with a situation kind of like this, where we will have some number of tiles in the middle, and all of these other tiles will be on individual player boards like this in some way or form. The first person who takes from the center of the table has to take this marker right here. This indicates two things. First off, this is going to be the first negative marker that anybody gets. In addition, at the start of the next round, whoever takes this gets to go first. So it's both an advantage for the next round, but a disadvantage for the current round. Let's say I take this and then I want these blue tiles. I would take these 4 and I can place them just like that on my 4th row. Right? At the end of the round, very simply, all of these tiles are going to be gone on individual player boards in some way, shape, or form. And then we go from the top down. So as we're moving here, we'll start at the top. I don't have anything there. I will take the rightmost tile and put it in whatever its specific location is, and then this one will go back in the bag. Down here, same thing. I will take this blue tile, move it over, and all of these will go back in the bag. After that, we reset for the next round. We will put 4 tiles out on each of the individual factory spots, and we'll be ready to go. And we also do the scoring. The way scoring works is you get 1 point for each individual tile. So you go 1, 2, and then you can get an adjacency bonus. For example, if I had a blue tile here and then I placed this yellow tile, that would mean that I would get 1 point for placing it and then a 2nd point for being adjacent to the tile. So that means that I would get a total of 2 points. If I had something similar where, let's say that this was even bigger. If I had something like this and then I placed that yellow tile, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 points for that. So you can make significant numbers of points by playing off the adjacency bonuses. However, the trick is obviously that you want to do them in a specific order, or at the very least you want to make certain that you get some of the gaps filled out, or leave the gaps so that you'll be able to fill them out very bombastically and intensely towards the end. For example, if we had a situation like this, where I had something like that. Here, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. So if this was my situation where I've got my yellow, my blue, my 2 blacks here, and then my red, my yellow, and my blue, if I were to be able to place the snowflake right in the middle, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points just for that one. On top of that, I would end the game because I've completed a horizontal row. But that's really all there is to this game. It's very, very simple mechanics, but at the same time, strategically, it can get really, really intense. The primary way that you get your intensity is by forcing your opponents to take tiles that they either don't want or can't use, or, as the case may be, both. So that means what's going to end up potentially happening, let's say that I've got blues like this, and let's say that I've got all of these filled up. And then I've already got blues filling up these sections, and all that I'm left with in the middle of the table are blues here. So let's say I've already got all of my blues, these are ready to go, and then I'm forced to take these 3. The problem is I can't legally put them here because I've already got a blue. Can't put them here because I have, can't put them here because I've got one. So all 3 of these would have to go at the bottom. And at the end of the round, after you score your positive points, you score your negative points. In this case, I'd get -1, -2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points minus. So you can really take down your opponents in a fairly drastic way. Like I said though, that's really all there is to this game. Very simple, but a lot of fun. There is an interesting variant that you can try as well. On the backs of these, you'll notice that all of the sections are gray instead of colored. The way that this works is the exact same way as the original game, except you yourself are picking where the individual colors go. This can potentially allow you to set up your adjacency bonuses a little bit more easily, but you do still have to obey the rules of not repeating a color either vertically or horizontally. In other words, you can't do something like this where you just have all blues, but you could do something along these lines where you might have it, I don't know, like that. Right? Anything along those lines. But again, this allows you to sort of better plan out your specific adjacency bonuses, but you do have to be careful that you don't repeat everything. So it's a little bit more advanced, but not so much that it should be really confusing. That said, that's pretty much all I had to say about Azul and how to play. Again, very simple game. End of the round, everything goes back in the bag, and you redraw 4 for each of the circles, however many you have. Like I said, that's all I have for my little demo of how to play Azul, and with that we're going to go right into some pros and cons as well as general conclusions. Well, folks, as far as pros and cons are concerned, there are a couple that I wanted to mention. First and foremost, the biggest pro is one that I was honestly very surprised about, and that is the aesthetic appeal of Azul. It's not something that I expected when I first saw it online. It's not something that I expected when I first played it, but as soon as I started playing it, I just thought, oh goodness, this game is absolutely gorgeous. And it really plays well into the theme for the game, which is based off of the Portuguese tile art, essentially. And that's what the entire game is based around, and I think they did a great job of translating that into the boards, and you can sort of see your board itself come to life as you go through and you play through the rounds and all that kind of thing. Next up, as far as the pros are concerned, is I was kind of surprised by how strategically deep this game can be with its relative simplicity. It's kind of like some of these other abstract games that we see, like maybe like Onitama and things of that nature, where you don't have a high complexity at a surface level in terms of what you're able to do or how you go about doing it, but when you really start to look and strategize, not only with yourself and what you're going to do, but also how it can affect your opponents, you can see a lot of very Eurocentric type of take that mechanics and those types of things. Next up, as pros are concerned, is I love the time that this game takes. And I know that might seem kind of like a weird thing, but for me, normally, most of my gaming is done at the FLGS during board game nights, and it's great to have a game like this that is relatively quick to play, especially if everybody already knows how to play it. And not only that, but it's extremely simple to set up. You saw the number of pieces that it has. There's very, very few. You literally have your player boards, your factories, and you put the tiles on and you're ready to go. It's extremely fast to set up and very, very quick to play as soon as everybody knows it. That said, moving right into the cons, there are a couple that I wanted to mention on this. And the first one being this Euro-style take that mechanic that you can end up with. A lot of people really tend not to like those kinds of games, and while it's not extremely prominent in this particular one, it is there. It does have that same kind of feeling, like I've mentioned a couple times in this video, but not to the extent, in my opinion, that makes it really a bad thing, and certainly not one that makes it an unenjoyable gameplay experience. Moving right along, the other major con for me, while I do have the second printing of this game, and the first printing was apparently not as good, the actual components for this game are gorgeous, and that's a big pro for me. But the con for me with regard to the components is the score tracker. The score tracker in this game is really terrible, and it's far, far too easy for it to be bumped and moved around. And the fact that everybody has their individual score trackers on their own cards can make it not necessarily confusing, but it can make it a little bit more difficult for people to keep track of their own thing. Not to mention, again, it's far too easy to just knock things over or bump it off and things of that nature, and then it's just like, ah, shoot, where was I don't remember, I can't figure it out type of thing. Other than that, though, I honestly don't have any major cons for this game. The times that I've played it, it has always been a blast. Everybody's really enjoyed it. I've not won it personally, but for me, that shows that it's an even better game because I enjoy it even though I'm not very good at it. Again, aesthetically pleasing, absolutely gorgeous, surprising amount of strategy in this relatively, in a mechanically simple game. A great example of how you can do drafting without making it exceedingly overly competitive. It's just a well-designed, really fun game overall, and I highly recommend it if you enjoy those types of games, or at the very least if you enjoy games that really look good. I know that it seems shallow to say, but I do know some people who won't play a game if it doesn't look nice, and this is a great example that has the best of multiple worlds in that sense. However, as I mentioned, if you're not a fan of the Euro-style game with the take that mechanic and essentially screwing over your opponents, at least to an extent, it might not be one that's for you, but it's definitely worth checking out regardless, simply because that style mechanic takes a backseat to everything else. But with that, thank you so very much again for watching my review and demo for how to play Azul. I hope that you enjoyed the video. As always, please put any and all of your thoughts and comments into the comments below, whether you have questions, comments, concerns, want to know something else about the components, or anything else. Just let me know. You guys know I love hearing from you. But with that, thank you very, very much again, and I will see you next time.